Hi there, Victor Pross, anarchist artist speaking to you. Today I have a very, or what I figure to be a very interesting angle on something. And I think you might find it interesting yourself. Occurred to me last night. Okay, here's the idea. Here's the angle. Now we all know that I'm sure that we've all experienced the type of person who is cynical towards politicians, very cynical and dismissive, and the type like, oh, they're all crooks, they're all bastards, they're only interested in lining their own pockets, and they break their campaign promises, but they're not necessarily anarchists, or they're not anarchists at all. I'm talking about people who aren't. They're not voluntarists. They might even describe themselves as conservatives or Democrats or whatever. And they're just your average Joe. Your bomb-eating six-pack Joe and or other demographic types. And they could very well be types of people who abstain from voting because all the parties are full of crap and blah 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 blah. I mean, I'm sure we've met this type of person. They're in a certain sense they're apolitical, but they certainly don't go around describing themselves as angorists or anarchists, voluntarists, and the like. And you have to ask yourself, like, when you really push it, if you were to ask them, like, well, since you are so hostile and dismissive of politicians, and you're not actively voting, and you just dismiss them all as a bunch of crooks and shysters, which they are, of course, I'm not going to take that away from them, but this is the point. This is the point. If they are completely dismissive of politicians and cynical of the system, and they don't vote, and they laugh at the shysterdom of politicians and just dismiss them outright, it's a lot of crooks, and I have met this type. When you ask them, though, would you say, oh, so then you're against the state, and you don't think that we should have a government, that the government should be abolished? Watch what happens from there. Oh no, I'm not saying that. What are you, crazy? No, I'm not an anarchist like you. But they just don't get it. They just don't get it. Politicians are the government. A government is nothing more than an aggregate of people. Those people are politicians. The politicians are the government. The government are politicians. So, I mean, yeah, like you have like loose factions going on, like lobbyists and colonial capitalists and mercantilism going on, and then lesser on down and intermixed with the hierarchy. But when you get to the grand heap, the echelons, the ruling class, who are pulling the strings, passing the laws, expropriating the money, signing up foreign policy, constructing it, implementing it, carrying it out, they're politicians. So what the hell kind of sense does it make to this type of person to say that, to just be dismissive of politicians, but to be pro-government? It's a freaking contradiction. So that's something for them to work out. But it's kind of like it occurred to me, this angle, this way of approaching an argument, and I wanted to share it with you. To see if you concur or understand what I mean, and maybe it's something that you could elaborate on in your own thinking, oh fellow anarchist of mine. And you know, another thing too is that to keep in mind that the politicians, as a breed, in their own right, we have to understand like the nature of the job. It's not something that's where they wake up and they, you know, they have a special trade or a special skill or whatnot. I mean, it's a completely illegitimate profession. It's a parasitical, predatory profession. Okay, it's not an actual vocation, not as such that the free market would produce. So, and because government is an illegitimate institution, because it initiates the use of force, as I've argued in other videos, it completely, because force is the end of morality, it jettisons morality right out from the equation. You just completely removed it. There's no longer to discuss when you initiate force against people, and government is nothing but a humongous, massive, overwhelming force, the initiation force. And that's why I say it's evil at root. And that's why I say, regardless of the type, if you know a politician, or if you hear of their private life and them they going to barbecues and kissing babies, and they have families and they wear nice suits and they're in dome-covered kind of powerfully structured architectural buildings, and you know, might tend to think, well, he's just like me, and well, you know, in a certain sense that politicians are like you. They put on their pants one leg at a time, they eat and they kiss their kids and go to baseball and games or whatever the hell they're doing and things like that. But because of the nature of the racket that they're involved, they're pretty deplorable people. So so there is no such thing as a good politician. To some measurable degree, separate from politics, there might be good. They might be varying degrees of their goodness as people, but in the capacity of politician, a good politician is a oxymoron, because, as I've stressed, there is no such thing as governments without politicians. There's no such thing as a politician without a government in place. So if you are against politicians and consider it a big, giant, humongous racket and they're full of shit, which they are, then if you advocate and say that, well, no, we need a government, well, sorry, you're contradicting yourself. USA, 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 USA. So, something to think about. That's all for now. Victor Pross, anarchist, artist, signing out. Thanks for listening. Pop goes the culture.